Good morning, everyone. I'm Sally McDonald. Welcome to our televised debate between the two candidates hoping to win Harris County's top law enforcement position, that of District Attorney. We have incumbent Devon Anderson and challenger Kim Ogg. Thanks so much for being here, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Sally.
we are also joined by our Fox 26 Roundup panel. Good morning again to all of you.
Good morning.
This race is the race to watch in Harris County. The winner will oversee the largest DA's office in the state with about 600 employees. On average, 110,000 cases are prosecuted each year. And we want to begin this morning by giving each candidate 90 seconds for opening remarks. And we're going to start with our incumbent, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you. About a year ago, I was appointed by the governor to be the district attorney of Harris County, and I've been doing the job ever since. I began my career at the DA's office in 1992, hired by Johnny Holmes. I became a felony prosecutor and tried over 100 felony jury trials and 7 capital murders, including the railcar killer, which I tried with Mr. Holmes. I then left to go on to the bench, where I was presiding over felony cases, and I volunteered as a drug court judge. After that, I went into private practice until my husband was elected district attorney. I stepped up to take Mike's place because the office means a great deal to me. It's where I met my husband, it's where I had my son Sam and my daughter Bren, and I would like to see the office restored to its rightful place as the best DA's office in the country. The prosecutors are glad that I'm there. I lead from the front. This summer, I prosecuted cop killer Harlem Lewis and got the death penalty for the murders of Jimmy Norman, a Bel Air police officer, and Terry Taylor, a business owner who came to his aid. We're doing some very innovative things at the DA's office in the areas of human trafficking, mental health, drug cases, and I'd like to be able to talk about those hopefully in more detail this morning. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson, thank you. Ms. Ogg, you now have 90 seconds for an opening statement.
I'm Kim Ogg. I'm the Harris County Democratic nominee for District Attorney. I have a strategic plan for making Harris County safer, and I'd like to tell you about it. I'm going to prioritize prosecution of criminal predators, burglars, robbers, rapists. Unfortunately, right now, our priorities appear to be on small-time drug possession cases. $10 million a year is spent prosecuting 12,000 offenders for misdemeanor possession of marijuana. I want to route those people around the jail and directly into community service where they can clean up our bios and waterways and at the same time keep their records clean. And what about offenders who commit their crimes with a pen instead of a gun? I intend to step up prosecution of white-collar criminal fraud because I understand that businesses, owners, employees can be victims too. I will ensure that no one is wrongfully convicted by basing our prosecutions on solid evidence. I will lead the charge to reform our unfair grand jury system and help restore faith by the community in our justice system. I will be an impartial DA who never allows cronyism to enter into my decisions because I believe in justice for all. It's more than just a slogan, it's my promise to you.
Thank you both for those opening remarks. Our Roundup panel is going to be leading our questions this morning. We have our Fox 26 legal analyst, Chris Tritico, our public policy analyst, Jackie Bally, and our news analyst, Mustafa Tamiz. Chris, you're going to start things off with a question for both of our candidates, and a coin flip has determined that Ms. Anderson will go first.
Yes, thank you. In the last session of the legislature, the Michael Morton Act was signed into law, which requires the prosecution to turn over virtually everything they have to the defense. Do both of you support this act, and what should be the sanction for failure to follow it by a prosecutor?
I do agree with the Michael Morton Act, and as a felony prosecutor, it was my policy to turn over everything in my file because I was going to win anyway, and I was going to get significant prison time. We don't cheat to win, and that has been the message that I have told all the prosecutors in the office. We turn over everything. If you fail to turn over Brady, and especially, I think the sanction should be very harsh.
And Ms. Ogg, you have a minute to answer as well.
Unfortunately, our current DA administration does not have a Brady list, meaning a list of officers whose credibility may be challenged by the defense. This is a foundation and a cornerstone of convictions that will last on appeal, convictions that will be upheld. So it is critical in terms of making convictions stick, making sure that we have the right person in jail, to be open to information at all times that would show the innocence of the defendant. If that information comes forward, I pledge to make sure that the defense has it, even if it's after conviction.
Our next question for both of you comes from our panelist, Mustafa Tamiz. You will both have a minute to answer again, and Ms. Ogg, we'll start with you.
Each year, about 13,000 misdemeanor cases are filed. Many defendants sit in jail because they cannot make bond. They lose their jobs and suffer all sorts of consequences before ever even seeing a judge. Do either of you support increasing personal bond monitored by pre-trial services office in these cases?
Mustafa, we have a terrible problem right now with too many people in the Harris County Jail who simply can't make bond. It's not supposed to be a tool of oppression. We're simply supposed to guarantee that the defendant will return to court. It's important, therefore, to use the resources of the county. We have a strong pretrial division. They make a risk assessment. I think it's up to the prosecutor to agree when it's appropriate to pretrial bonds. Right now, the office and the lawyers will say they have a policy against it, and yet they can't tie it to public safety. I think it's important that people not be held in jail for monetary reasons because they're too poor to get out, but only in the case where they present a true danger to the community.
So we don't have a policy against pretrial bonds, but we do not urge them. It is the magistrate's decision after an assessment is to decide whether this person is going to show up in court or not. It has to be a systematic procedure that is followed. I have no problem with people who have very little criminal history or nonviolent criminal history being out among the community, continuing their work. I was a defense attorney and I saw that if you do stay in jail, you can lose everything. So I don't have a problem with that, but we have to be very careful to make sure that violent offenders, people who can cause us harm or steal from us, are not out on bond while they wait for trials. I think about 53% of the jail population now are felony defendants charged with very serious crimes waiting for their day in court, and I completely agree with that.
And our third question this morning in this hour comes to us from Jackie Bally, and we're going to start with Ms. Anderson for a response. You both have a minute again to answer.
Yes, Ms. Ogg has been very public with her. She said that there are certain laws and some policies in place that she does not feel comfortable implementing, for instance, trace cases, if elected. What is your opinion about that?
My opinion is that it doesn't matter what the district attorney's opinion is regarding a law. We take an oath, and I've taken that oath, to uphold the laws of the state of Texas, all of them, whether I agree with them or not. You do not want a district attorney who picks and chooses which laws she thinks should be enforced. I will continue to prosecute trace cases as long as they're against the law in the state of Texas. If you have a problem with the law, call your legislature. If the legislature changes the law, I will enforce the changes that they make. But it is not my job to decide which ones to enforce or not.
It is the duty of the DA to use discretion in how we prioritize expenditure of our resources. Right now, we spend millions of dollars jailing low-level drug offenders at the expense of violent criminals. That's got to change. In cases where we've got invisible drugs, where they've swabbed somebody's mouth or there's too little amount of drugs to test, it's my position that's against a defendant's due process rights and that we have no business taking such cases, especially when we find out often later that the substance that was alleged to be a drug isn't. That's too late. So we're going to stop those cases at the front door and we're going to focus on violent criminals.
All right, that concludes our first round of questioning, ladies. We're going to take a quick break. Our debate continues in just a few minutes. Welcome back to the debate between Harris County District Attorney Devon Anderson and challenger Kim Ogg. It's good to have you with us. This question is for both of you, and Ms. Anderson, we're going to start with you. Thousands of people are charged with marijuana possession each year in Harris County, possessing less than 4 ounces, and they're jailed, costing taxpayers millions of dollars. What is your plan to handle these cases, and how is it better than your opponents?
Well, next month I'm starting a program called the First Chance Intervention Program. My opponent likes to call it the Me Too because she thinks I thought of it after her, but I've actually been working on this for close to a year with the sheriff and the chief. Her plan is a cite and release, which has been a miserable failure, at least in Travis County. They had a 40% no-show rate. So we're actually going to have an arrest. You will be arrested and transported, but if you're a first offender, never been in trouble before, and you're possessing less than 2 ounces of marijuana, we will give you an opportunity to do some community service or do a class, and then you'll have nothing on your record. My opponent is offering it to anyone, and she's offering it for any drug, Class A or B. We are going to only give it to people who are a self-correcting group of people who will be scared straight by this process, and we'll never see them again in the criminal justice system.
Ms. Ogg, you have a minute to answer.
I believe that the future of misdemeanor marijuana drug prosecution is a program that I've dubbed GRACE. It's not the Me Too program of my opponent. It's an original program that I unveiled at the beginning of August this year. This program would allow anyone charged with misdemeanor possession of marijuana to not go to jail, to go directly to court instead. If they fail to appear, we'll write a warrant for their arrest and the police can kick their door. I expect that they will show up. We'll offer them then 2 days community service in a program called Clean and Green that I started back in 2007 for the Port of Houston. Clean and Green will see that they remove trash from the bios, keeping their record clean and keeping our waterways clean and repaying our community at the same time. The public wants change on marijuana prosecution, and they're tired of wasting millions of dollars on such crimes when violent predators and burglars are running our streets.
Thank you. Our next question comes from our panelist, Mustafa Tamiz, and this will be directed to Ms. Ogg first, and you will each have a minute to answer.
If you're elected on November 4th, what changes to the DA's office will you make in your first 100 days?
Going to implement the GRACE program, which will mean we'll save every officer on a marijuana arrest at least 3 hours, putting them back in patrol to protect us. I will immediately revolutionize in terms of technology and evidence the decisions we make about policies. Our policies are going to directly impact public safety. Grand jury reform has to be at the top of the list to restore public trust in our justice system.
And Ms. Anderson.
Thank you. Well, the one main thing we'll start working on, which we've already begun, is on the budget, because we need to increase our personnel. Right now we have 300 prosecutors where LA has 1,000, Chicago has 600. We are woefully understaffed, although the prosecutors do a brilliant job, as do all the support staff. We will continue with the training that we have, making us experts in all areas of law, which makes this a safer community because we get great verdicts on our sentences, on our trials. Also, we are seeking diversity in hiring. The first assistant, Belinda Hill, is the head of the hiring committee, and our goal is to make our office look like Houston. And every month or so, I meet with new prosecutors, and I'm seeing more and more diversity with the people that I meet. We want people to have trust in our office and understand that our main goal is the safety of the public and getting justice for crime victims.
And our next question is going to come from our panelist, Jackie Valley, and Ms. Anderson will answer first, followed by Ms. Ogg.
Ms. Anderson, in your opening statements, you commented that your office is working to reduce the backlog of capital murder cases and strengthening the human trafficking division. How are your resources supported by the budget? Where are you getting the resources for these two issues?
For the Capital Murder Project Court, we have been partnering with the Budget Office of Harris County. We had a huge backlog of capital murder cases where the death penalty was not being sought. Over 200 cases had not been tried. So with the help of the Budget Office, we've hired 2 judges who do nothing but try capital murder cases. And in 10 months, we've disposed of 83 of those cases. You can compare that to 2012, where we disposed of 30. So this has been a huge success. With human trafficking, we started out with 1 prosecutor, an excellent prosecutor who is an expert in the area, but when her case load reached to 300, we just moved another prosecutor in there and an investigator, because unfortunately, that area of the law is booming. So I hope with the next budget, we'll be able to give her even more help to prosecute these very serious cases.
And Ms. Ogg, same question, how will you work to strengthen these 2 divisions?
Our district attorney currently has a $68 million budget. I propose specializing in case prosecution at the front door, at intake. We're going to fully staff divisions like human trafficking, gangs, white collar. Divisions now that are only staffed by 1 or 2 lawyers, occasionally 3. We need to devote our resources to the crimes that are important to our public safety. And those crimes are not small-time drug possession cases. That's where our money's going right now. So I'm emphasizing quality prosecution, not quantity prosecution, aiming at the most dangerous people. Cartels run the trafficking operations here in Houston. We're putting them on our most wanted list. We'll seek and destroy those organizations.
And now the head of our panel, Chris Tritico, has a question for both candidates. And Kim Ogg, you will answer first, followed by Ms. Anderson.
The job of a prosecutor is to see that justice is done, not just get convictions. What would you do to a prosecutor who knowingly suppressed evidence and used false testimony? Would you support making such conduct a criminal offense?
Integrity in prosecution is critical to the public trust. When we have officers of the court who lie, who backdate orders, who cheat in some way to gain advantage over a criminal defendant, that's criminal. And all such crimes will be investigated and prosecuted. No more cronyism, no more backroom deals for friends. It's got to be evident to the public that there's one standard of law in Harris County and that it applies to everyone equally. So I think we make examples of public officials, anyone who's a lawyer or a police officer or a judge who violates the law is held to a higher degree of, I think, trust by the community, and therefore must be held to the equal standard of law that would apply to any one of us accused of such a crime.
And Ms. Anderson.
As I said earlier, we've been training on Brady issues. We've been training on ethics. It comes from the top in an office. For 22 years, I've been down at that courthouse, and you can ask anybody there how I've conducted my business. I think it's probably why I got 86% of the bar poll saying that I was qualified or well qualified. I believe in complete transparency in prosecution and giving the defense everything we have. My prosecutors know that if I found out that one of them had knowingly, intentionally suppressed exculpatory evidence, they would be fired. It's that simple.
And I think we may have time for one more question this block before, I'm being told we're going to go to a break. We'll be right back with more of our district attorney debate. Welcome back to our debate between the candidates hoping to be your next Harris County District Attorney, the incumbent Devon Anderson and challenger Kim Ogg. We have time for one final question. Our panelist Chris Tritico is going to ask it, and Ms. Anderson, we'll start with you.
So what's the most important issue, criminal justice-wise, facing the citizens of Harris County, and what do you plan to do about it?
I believe that we have a huge problem with gangs, and we are members of the Texas Anti-Gang Task Force and are active participants in rooting out these criminal organizations and prosecuting them to the fullest extent of the law. We are also facing, besides the fact that they are committing aggravated robberies and murders, they are also involved in human trafficking. So all of these are linked, and we are tackling that with the help of law enforcement every day to make this a safe county to live in.
Well, Ms. Anderson and I agree that gangs and the cartels and their influence in Houston and Harris County are very negative and present one of the greatest threats to public safety in existence in our city. I was the gang task force leader of this city for 6 years. During my tenure, gang crime was reduced by 40%. We need specialized prosecution. There is no division in the DA's office that specializes in this, and just like all other specialty areas of prosecution, that's what we need. So that's what we're going to do.
And we are going to wrap up our debate this morning with final statements from each of the two candidates. You each have a minute to make closing remarks, and Ms. Ogg will begin with you.
I'm Kim Ogg. I'm asking for your vote for Harris County District Attorney because I am passionate about justice. I believe in integrity in prosecution. I believe in experience, qualifications, and that your next DA needs the judgment, good judgment, to actually serve the functions of seeing that justice is done, not just to obtain convictions. I've been a prosecutor, the city's first anti-gang director, the leader of Crime Stoppers of Houston, and an attorney in private practice defending the rights of the accused. My mother was a kidnapped victim, and all of my professional career has been spent fighting crime. We need a DA that will represent all the communities of Houston, that will step up to the challenges of the 21st century, revolutionize case management and prosecution culture. I will be that DA.
Ms. Ogg, thank you. Ms. Anderson, you have a minute for closing remarks.
Thank you. You know, a lot has been spoken today about small amounts of drugs or prosecuting drug users, with ignoring the fact that this forms the basis of most of the crime that we see down in the courthouse. Our trial bureau prosecutors are the backbone, and since I've been in office, they've prosecuted and gone to trial on over 600 cases. Of those in felony, 71% were violent crimes. So every single day we're getting in there and we're prosecuting the worst of the worst criminals. We've had 4 death penalty sentences this year, and we've got 1 more to go, which I'm sure our excellent prosecutors will secure for this county. If you want a strong, conservative district attorney who will follow the law, then vote for me.
And a reminder, Election Day is a little more than a month away. It's Tuesday, November 4th. Early voting in Harris County begins Monday, October 20th and lasts through Halloween. Don't forget, this year you will need to present a valid photo ID to get your ballot. Thanks so much for joining us for this morning's District Attorney's Debate. Ms. Ogg, Ms. Anderson, thank you so much. Good luck to you. We're going to see you next weekend. Make it a great day. Fox News Sunday is next.